instead of using wire to protect your hackle, you can actually wrap your hackle around the thread and around the hook and still be protected. Just faster. But bear in mind that the direction of wrapping or twisting the hackle around the thread is very important, so stay tuned. So I will explain why and demonstrate why. Why breaking the tradition of wire ribbing a polymer hackle? Well, we have various reasons. Modern powerful threads make wire kind of obsolete, and it's quite easy to do ribbing with the thread and make flies strong. Second reason is probably why I actually not invented, by why I came up with this method, is just because I was lazy. So I was thinking how to make these things faster. I didn't like wiggling wire through the polymer hackle. It's just too much for me sometimes, at least when I was starting my tying. So going with thread through the polymer hackle seemed quite obvious, but I was afraid that Trout's teeth may fray the thread. With Semperfli Nano Silk or other GSP threads, I don't have that problem, and well, actually I don't have that problem with any threads as long as they're like relatively thick, let's say 6/0 or 8/0 or 10/0 for some threads. So yeah, they actually protect your hackle pretty good. Reason number 3 is that wire can actually make your fly a little bit heavier, though this is not scientifically proven by any means. What I mean here, I don't think that wire adds too much of a weight, but if we can decrease the weight and add buoyancy to the fly, I don't think it's a bad thing, no matter how much weight we are decreasing here. And there is another thing to consider, it's the hook. Many hooks today are labeled as dry flies and they have more or less thick wire, but you also have some dry fly hooks that are relatively thin and strong. So by using a lighter hook, we can actually cut down the weight much more than by just not using the wire. But still, if we can get without wire, why not? One of the most important reasons why I would skip using the wire and start using the thread for ribbing is tying small flies. Imagine tying 20, 24, 32 fly and you have to do something with a wire. Like, you won't even find wire thin enough for that. And even if you do, that wire is definitely less strong than nano silk in 18/0 or even in 24/0. That's new, I haven't tried, but I'm sure it's quite strong, definitely stronger than wire. And also having one less step while making very small flies is definitely an advantage. So I think that cutting the wire in the process is definitely a big advantage for small flies. As I already mentioned in some of my previous videos, this method is definitely applicable to many other materials, not only the hackle. So you can use it with, let's say, marabou or peacock or maybe some longer barbs. There are many ways you can use this method. Now tell me, are there any advantages that you can think of that I haven't mentioned? If you do, please comment down below. I'm really curious to hear those. Now, we covered advantages. Disadvantages, I can think of one, and if you can think of any other, please let me know again in the comments. I would appreciate that. The only disadvantage I can think of now is that you won't be insta hackle hero, so you won't have those really neat wraps of hackle around your fly, but your fly will definitely be functional and fish will love it. So I don't see this as a disadvantage to your fly. Now after I mentioned all of this, let's go into tying, and first I'll go with materials. I'll use Hanak in size 12, and this hook I'm using because it's good for dry flies. It's relatively light but still strong enough. The size is something that I want to match like around here, so it's relatively large insect. And I also want to use it as an attractor. That's why I want to use larger hook. I mean, 12 is definitely not large, but it's larger than most of the flies, dry flies I'm using around here. When it comes to thread, I already showed it to you, but it's something that I've been using a lot, and it's Semperfly Nano Silk 18/0. This one is olive. It will blend in nicely in other materials that I will use, and as I was mentioning already, it's strong, so it will protect our fly. It will protect our hackle. That's very important. Dubbing, I will use kapok, and I will use two colors. I will use this dark gray over here, and I will use orange as a hotspot. Kapok is very fine dubbing, and I want to show I want to show how I use it and how I dub with it, because it's beautiful material for those things. Although it's even more beautiful for very small flies. You will see why. Now let's go to hackle. This is something I acquired recently, and it's one of the most beautiful capes that I've got. As you can see, it's heritage from whitening, and the color is, I mean, just amazing. I was looking for something that reminds me of Coq de Lion. I couldn't get those speckles, but this is, you will see in macro mode, it's almost as good. It's just beautiful feather to work with. I would recommend using genetic capes or saddles, because you will have thinner rakeys to work with, longer length, so it's easier to manipulate around the hook shank, and that's it. And definitely those barbs, so when you have a hackle, those barbs are definitely much stiffer than, let's say, Indian roosters, which have relatively soft barbs. So the genetic hackle will hold your fly better on the water surface because of more surface tension that it will create. For the wet hackle, I'm going to use this again from whitening. It's a Herbert Minor wet fly hackle. Not sure about the color. Medium gray done. Medium gray done. It's just beautiful. The softness and how beautifully it wraps is just amazing with this with these feathers. So I want to add those at the front of the fly to add some movement and a little bit of silhouette, as you will see. It just adds so much, and I love using wet fly hackle in front of dry fly on many of my flies, dry fly. Now let me explain the whole concept about wrapping the hackle around the thread, and why the certain direction is more important, more durable than the other one. It just makes more sense, as you will see. So let's consider that these two strands of thread that you can see here are okay, they are parallel, as you can see here, and when you wrap your thread around the hook shank, with each wrap you introduce one twist. As you can see here, the thread is not parallel anymore, it's twisted. And when you try to untwist it, you have to go counterclockwise to get it parallel again. Let's see again. You wrap, and it gets twisted again. So in most threads will twist clockwise as you wrap them around the hook shank. So when you take your thread, tying thread, when you lay it down the hook shank, and let's say the thread is yellow and the hackle is this reddish color, when you start wrapping, most people that I've seen would wrap it counterclockwise because it's kind of easier to do that with your hands. And when you start doing that and you start wrapping your hackle, look what happens. After a couple of wraps you get parallel, meaning that material and thread untwisted, so you have to wrap it additionally. You wrap, and then you wrap additionally. Why would you do that? Just use your materials as they're supposed to be used. I mean, use their advantage, use their nature to your advantage. In this case, twisting of thread, use it to your advantage, meaning if you look from above, twist everything clockwise and then start wrapping, and by each wrap all the materials will actually twist even more, meaning it will be more reinforced. That's all you need to do. Now let's get into tying. Now, as I was saying, I will start with hackle 130 barbless in size 12. The thread I'll be using Semperfli Nano Silk in 18/0 olive. Before I start wrapping the thread around the hook, I want to run it once or twice through the beeswax to increase the friction and prevent slippage. So I'll start the fly somewhere where I want my hackle to begin, more or less, not so important. I'll just wrap backwards and cover it. Okay, I'll cover the whole shank, and now I'm going to start using this kind of grayish color, kapok. What you want to do with kapok is, this is very important, you don't take the whole clump. Okay, you don't take like this and wrap it. I mean, you certainly can, but you have less control. It definitely dubs even like this beautifully, but if you take smaller clumps, you'll have much better control, and this is important for some smaller flies. You can see it can create like extremely thin, like very thin dubbing noodle, but you will kind of taper it according to your needs as you go down. So I'll add more or less dubbing as needed, and I'll create dubbing rope that I think will cover the shank here. So I'll just add more. I'll kind of layer the dubbing, so applying less dubbing over here, and as I advance down I'll add a little bit more, and you will see very soon why. Now, this should be enough, and as you can see I have like a very nice and tight dubbing noodle. Some say that this dubbing adds buoyancy to your fly. I don't agree with that. It definitely doesn't add, doesn't absorb water, but it cannot float a hook shank. As you can see, the dubbing is so tight that you can see segmentation here. At this point I will add some orange or yellow or whatever color you like to create a hotspot. The hotspot won't be super visible, but that's why it's called spot. It's small. So I'll just layer it a little bit more. Just beautiful dubbing to work with. I can imagine like one of the best materials for dubbing small flies is this one. I can guarantee you that, especially small CDC flies. I think this hardly anything can beat this material for this kapok material. I'll just use a little bit of wax because I want to cover the hook shank over here to make it less slippery. Wait, I want to go back. Less slippery because I want to add my hackle here. For the hackle, I'm using this whitening heritage that I already showed you. Now, you don't want to use this part, definitely, it's too big. The rake is too thick, too difficult to work with, and unpredictable. But you can also notice that here it has that webby part. Go down, it tapers down until somewhere here, and that's where you want to cut your feather. I just break it, honestly. And now I'll just remove a couple of barbs. See if it's good. It is. As you can see, I'm touching the eye over here, but their rachis is a little bit longer. Counterspin the bobbin holder so the thread jumps into your fingers. Catch the radius, catch it firmly so it doesn't slip, and you'll end up with thread very near touching this orange part. But as you can see, I have kind of bare radius a little bit here. That's important. I'll just open up those barbs a little bit. I should have done it before, but yeah, this is going to be okay now. Okay, I'll just... There are a couple of barbs that ran away on the wrong side. Okay, this is just to ensure that the thread, which I will twist clockwise a little bit, because twisted thread will go easier through the barbs. It won't catch those barbs. Well, it won't catch as many barbs as the flat one would. Now in clockwise direction, wrap the hackle. Now you will see that it kind of destroys, realigns those barbs. They're not perfectly aligned as they were before, but it's not terrible. Definitely not terrible. And after a couple of wraps, like not couple, but maybe 6, 7, 10, who cares, just start wrapping together. Catch the hackle and the thread together and start wrapping. I want to have a couple of wraps here at the beginning and then just spiral it down the hook. And that's it. I can actually even untwist it because I twisted too much here. Okay, one more. No, it's too much, definitely. I'll untwist it from the thread and then again with twisted thread, so clockwise direction, with twisted thread I'll catch the radius, the whole feather actually, backwards, leave it as it is at the moment, and now just go through the feather, through the fly, and wait here. Okay, as you can see, this is heavily palmered. Okay, I'll add a little bit of more wax here because I want to catch another feather here, but at this moment I can cut this. I see, is everything okay? As you can see, it's relatively heavily palmered, so it's going to be buoyant. I'll take wet fly hackle and see, is it longer? I want it longer or the same size as this hackle, but usually longer is what I'm after. Okay. I don't want to use too many reps. Let me see. This looks okay. Yeah, this looks okay. I'm gonna fold it first, folding the hackle, but just a couple of these. I'll be using these barbs, so I won't be using the rest of the feather, but I want to fold it nevertheless so I can wrap it more easily. Okay, cut the feather and form this triangle. Counterspin the bobbin holder so it jumps into your fingers again. And then catch this triangle. I'm pulling it a little bit. Okay, and okay. Now you can definitely twist this feather as well, but I won't do that. I'll just wrap it around. Well, I have to cut this, it's in my way. Okay, now let's do those wraps. Let's add some movement to this fly. Okay, And now I have bare rachis to work with. 2 reps, and I have those 2 sticking like antennas, but I didn't want them to stick out, so I just okay, that's it. Almost finished fly. Now avoid breaking off this rachis because sometimes it pops out. Okay. Whip finish, wax the thread so the whip finish is more durable. When you're wrapping whip finish, whip it towards the eye, wrap it towards the eye, so the wraps will be more neatly aligned. Okay. I like to do 2 whip finishes in case one fails, the other one won't. To cut the GSP threads, to cut the Simperfly, put some tension on the hook and just press blade against the thread. It will pop easily. And that's it. It's a beautiful little fly that against the light will give the impression of, those legs will give you the impression of obviously legs, but also I think wings. Look how it looks like against the light, against the bright sky. Let's say that this light is bright sky. Just definitely you cannot see so many legs. It's slim, it's slender, but it rides high as those mayflies or caddisflies that are touching the surface and jumping off the surface, hatching. So this is something I would use in late afternoon and for those fish that are aggressively feeding on the surface. So guys, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, so guys, thank you very much for watching. Keep safe and tight lines.